Yes, that was Comrade Nathi Mthethwa, an all-rounder, a great revolutionary, very firm, part of that generation that responded to OR's call to render South Africa ungovernable and the apartheid system unworkable. The generation ga Peter Mkaba, the generation ga Ephraim Kwe, Norman Mashabane, Isaiah Ntshangase, Boni Nene, and Vusi Mzimela. Comrade President, here we are at this moment where we celebrate the life and struggle of Comrade Nathi Mthethwa. Indeed, his friends have spoken, his family and relatives have shared their part. We are at that moment where we will have a last respect in a form of the address by the President of our Republic, summing up the life and struggle of Comrade Nathi, who dedicated his entire life to the ANC. Let us stand up and welcome the President as he comes to address us at this sober moment. The President is known to all of us and has been in the struggle since he was a student. The struggle as a trade unionist, but worked with Nathi as the Secretary General of the ANC, the first Secretary General of the ANC after the unbanning. Work on ensuring the transition of this country to a democratic state, and work with Comrade Nathi in government. Let us allow the President Cyril Ramaphosa, to speak to us. Amandla!
Program directors, Deputy President Paul Mashatile, usisi wethu esizila naye Philile Mthethwa, the Mthethwa family, the Buthelezi family, ubukhosi bukaMthethwa, ubukhosi bukaButhelezi, the leadership that is gathered here, firstly extending my greetings and my gratitude to the Premier of our province here in KZN, Ubaba Ntuli, cabinet ministers and deputy ministers, other premiers who are here present, the mayors of our various municipalities, members of parliament, the leadership of the African National Congress, the organization that the person that we are here about belong to, the Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, and the Deputy Secretary General, Nomvula Mukonyane, and other officials of the African National Congress, and the leadership of other political parties that are here present, the IFP in particular. Abefundisi abakhona lapha phakathi kwethu nabo ngiyababingelela. Ngiphinde ngibingelele Ngibonge futhi ubuholi bamaphoyisa uGeneral Musikidi and those that she leads in making this official funeral so dignified. And greetings to all people who are here. I extend my greetings to everyone. Mangithi ke kumndeni wakamthethwa kakhulu laba abeme lapha bethi babonga umsebenzi oyenziwe uhulumeni baphinde futhi babeke neproposal ukuthi lo kaMhlongo akhutshulwe. Abashongo ukuthi anikwe AP position. Kodwa ke mina no Deputy President sihlezi lapha bese silinde ukuthi uzawuvela lo wakaMhlongo ukuthi azothola le promotion. Azange asavela ke. I-promotion izawunikwa laba bebegida lapha. Ibona bazothola i-promotion, yena sizobheka i-application yakhe. Nina bakadingiswayo, we are here to mourn with you. We gather here today in mourning, but we also gather in gratitude to honor the life of a remarkable leader, someone whose courage, someone whose conviction and compassion helped to steer our nation towards freedom and justice. Comrade Nathi Emmanuel Mthethwa has been taken away from us unexpectedly. Yet in the echoes of his deeds, in the memories that we share of him, and in the many lives that he touched, his spirit endures, as does the many lessons we must learn from his illustrious life. The man that we are laying to rest today was an unapologetic activist, as was clearly stated in his obituary. From the earliest days of his activism, Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa refused to accept the injustice of apartheid. Faced with laws that sought to divide, to demean, and to destroy, he responded not with resignation. He responded not with cowardice, but with resolve. Whether organizing workers at the Just Jews factory in KZN here, organizing underground meetings, mobilizing young people, offering comfort where there was despair, or organizing for peaceful resistance, Comrade Nathi placed himself always on the front lines, not because he sought glory or popularity, but because he believed in the correctness of our struggle against apartheid, because he believed in freedom and the dignity of every person. For him, living a life of activism was not just about protest. It was about purpose. It was about committing yourself to something larger than personal comfort. It was about justice, equality, dignity, freedom. It was about refusing to accept the world as it is and working every day to build the world as it should be. A life of activism is not an easy life. Those who are activists will testify to this. It is often uncomfortable, even dangerous, but it is also deeply human. In essence, the doctrine of activism is, even if I don't benefit, I will fight for others to be free and to benefit. Even if I am afraid, but I will not be silent. Even if I fall, the struggle will go on. That is the doctrine that Comrade Nathi Mthethwa abided by as an activist. That kind of approach to activism is simply powerful. That kind of life is also meaningful. That kind of activism changes the world. Comrade Nathi knew from an early age that the path of activism that he had chosen was a difficult one, and that it would involve sacrifice, that he would pay a price for being an activist. And in his case, the price was dismissal from the factory that he worked for, because he was an activist, organizing workers, gaining recognition for the Food and Allied Workers Union, which was not recognized. Because he was a shop steward, that sacrifice would lead to a loss of income, which it did. But perhaps it could also lead to exile, perhaps even arrest. Perhaps the heartbreak of seeing comrades fall, families torn apart, and hopes threatened. Yet even in adversity, Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa remained steadfast. He was a beacon to many, teaching us that freedom is never free, that resistance sometimes demands sacrifice, but that our highest obligation is to keep faith with the promise that yes, freedom will come one day. To Comrade Nathi Mthethwa's family, we know that this loss is deeply personal for you. As my sister Tomato Sirobe was saying, grieving is always personal. And nobody can ever go through it for you. So we know that you feel it personally at this time. We recognize the many private sacrifices that you as a family, the Mthethwa family, as well as the Buthelezi family, that you have had to make so that Comrade Nathi could carry the duties that he had to carry. Today, we share that grief with you. Not only us gathered here, but across the nation. We stand with you in sorrow, but also in pride of a life well lived, a life lived with integrity, and a life that was lived as though it was a mission that was bigger than any single person, but which needed people like Unyambose to bring into being. Today, as we say goodbye, let us not simply mourn. Let us be resolute. Let us honor Nathi Mthethwa's memory by renewing our own commitment, by ensuring that the freedoms that he fought for and worked for are protected and are advanced, by confronting inequality and poverty where it still exists, and exist it does, by raising our voices for those who are voiceless. Let us live up to the ideals that inspired Nathi Mthethwa to fight for equality, for justice, for compassion, and for unity. Much as we are here to accompany Ambassador Mthethwa on his final journey, more importantly, we are here to return Nathi's soul to his community, to the Mthethwa community, which gave him its blessings to live and to join the struggle for the liberation of our people. He joined the struggle in the early 80s when he was barely a teenager. Yet that youthful courage and that commitment saw him rise through the ranks to take up positions of leadership in the broader liberation movement. Following his brave role as a shop steward in the food industry and as an underground activist, he was recruited and became involved in the dangerous and high-stakes President Oliver Tambo initiated Operation Vula. This was a signal of the confidence and the trust that his comrades had in him. Operation Vula, which occurred and really ignited the determination of our people on the eve of the unbanning of our organization, was a very special operation. Only hand-picked people could be chosen for that operation. Led by Comrade Oliver Tambo himself, known to only a few comrades, Joe Slovo, Mac Maharaj, Joe Modise, and a few others. But Comrade Nathi was one of the very few who was chosen. He was of a generation that came of age as our democracy was about to dawn. It was a generation of young lions. Comrade Malusi Kigaba, Comrade Fikile Mbalula, and others were part of that generation. Young lions that saw the end of apartheid and ushered in a new era of freedom and justice. Like our democracy, this generation was young. They were hopeful. They were full of vigor and purpose. And they still are full of vigor and purpose. And at that young age, they shouldered many of the burdens of building a new South Africa and a new nation. Following the unbanning of the ANC, Comrade Nathi carried his commitment forward into what would become a lifetime of leadership. He rose through the ranks of the ANC Youth League from regional secretary to national executive roles. He took on responsibilities as a branch secretary in Klaarwater, as regional secretary, then working on national organizing. He became a member of parliament, and from there, he took up positions of ever greater responsibility. Chief Whip of the ANC, chair of a parliamentary committee, Minister of Police, then Minister of Arts and Culture and Sports. He served in cabinet for about 15 years in various portfolios, portfolios that carried great weight in the lives of our people: safety and security, policing, culture, sports, and heritage. He saw public service not just as a position of power, but as a duty. He believed that government must serve, it must uplift, it must protect, and it must heal. As government, as his political home, the African National Congress, and the broader liberation movement, we thank the Mthethwa family for your sacrifice in supporting Nathi as a young activist and in his political leadership endeavors. And my dear sister, Pelile, we also thank you. As we lay this gallant leader of our people to rest, what shall we say of Nathi Mthethwa's legacy? What endowments do we carry forward from his illustrious life? What can we learn from the life of Ambassador Nkosi Nathi Emmanuel Mthethwa? That would be inspiring, firstly, to young people, and secondly, to those in the ANC and those in government. The life of Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa offers several deep and relevant lessons for both young people and for those within the ANC and government, especially in a time when many are questioning the future of the struggle, the future of leadership and public service. I would suggest that he taught us what courage and commitment is all about. From being a shop steward to his student days, to being detained, to holding high office, Comrade Nathi Mthethwa never lost sight of what drew him into the struggle. The belief that injustice must be opposed, that people deserve dignity, they deserve rights and opportunities. He exhibited service before self. Friends and comrades say he was disciplined, that he was loyal and sometimes a bit controversial, but always believing he was working for we the people, not for self-aggrandizement. He understood that leadership meant responsibility, that it meant accountability, bearing burdens even when the path is difficult. He was an advocate of culture, heritage, and identity. As Minister of Arts, Culture and Sports, his work spoke to more than just policy. He believed in the power of culture to heal, to unite, to affirm who we are, people of many languages, many traditions, diverse, yet one nation. He believed in giving young people space to shine. As ambassador, he took South Africa's mission abroad very seriously, not just in diplomacy, but in forging friendships, alliances, mutual respect, in promoting investments for our country. As we heard my sister Tomato Sirobe saying, he organized the biggest investment conference in Paris, where the top French business people gathered. In doing so, he sought to ensure our story, our values, our hopes are known to the world, and that the world's opportunities are open to us. As Nathi Mthethwa started his activism as a young person, what lessons does his life impart on young people? Nathi didn't begin as a cabinet minister or as an ambassador. He began as a student leader in Klaarwater, organizing at the grassroots level. He joined the Klaarwater Youth Organization, not for status, but because he saw injustice and believed young people could make a difference. The lesson here is that one does not need to wait to be powerful, to be impactful. Leadership starts with action. Leadership starts with commitment and courage at the local level. Another important lesson from Nathi's life is that one must be willing to sacrifice for one's beliefs, as he did when he was expelled from work at Just Juice when he was still young. As part of the anti-apartheid underground and through Operation Vula, Nathi Mthethwa faced detention and political risk. He accepted the cost of standing for justice. Integrity may cost you comfort, but it builds character. One needs to stand for something bigger than yourself. That is what Nathi did. Nathi did not give up on activism after democracy was won. He committed to serving over decades in youth structures, in unions, in parliament, in the executive, and eventually as a diplomat. His activism matured. A cause for a just and democratic South Africa isn't a season. It is a lifetime task. One should stay the course, and one should evolve as Nathi evolved. But one should never abandon one's values as Nathi didn't. Many who knew Comrade Nathi described him as a disciplined, loyal cadre. And we heard this from Comrade Malusi Gigaba. He was not always the loudest or the most public-facing, but he was reliable, he was consistent, and he was strategic. The lesson here is passion brings you into the struggle, but discipline keeps you in the struggle. To be disciplined, to be organizational, and always to be well informed about your organization, its history, its current conjuncture, and its future. That was what Nathi preoccupied himself with. The lessons from Nathi's life for those in his organization and in government: Nathi moved from activism to administrator, and while his time in office had its critics, he represented a generation who took the responsibility of transformation, of transforming the state seriously. He understood that freedom meant not only fighting for democracy, but building institutions, durable institutions. For him, it also meant delivering services and protecting the rights of our people. Those in government must see public service as a duty, not a reward. As Minister of Arts and Culture, he championed the role of culture, of history and heritage in national healing. This was often overlooked, yet it's vital in a country where identity was weaponized under apartheid. Our role as leaders, as he recognized, is about promoting national cohesion, which he did to good effect. It's about promoting unity and preserving our nation's identity. It's about promoting national healing. Nathi Mthethwa dedicated his life to doing just that. Later in his career, Nathi took up a diplomatic post far from the limelight, one would say. That shift in itself and accepting that role shows humility, the willingness to serve the country even without the recognition that, that comes either with being a minister, that comes with hogging the limelight, is a unique attribute. True commitment means serving wherever you are needed and whenever you are needed, not only where you are visible. That is what Nathi did. And leadership includes the sacrifice of ego. Nathi remained loyal to ANC principles even amid difficult terrains. His life invites reflection on how to renew the ANC's moral center, not through rhetoric, but through conduct. Loyalty to the movement must not mean silence in the face of wrongdoing. The ANC must reflect, and this is what Nathi's life should teach us. He was pained by divisions in his movement, and he advocated for renewal, and that it should reclaim its mission and its glory in honor to serve the people of this country. In the end, to all of us, Nyambose's lesson to us is to let your organization speak for itself when it comes to discipline and organizational growth. Nyambose knew that he was not entitled to a leadership position or any benefit as a member of the African National Congress. He knew that in order to serve the people of this country, he had to organize, to serve, to endure, and to grow. Ambassador Mthethwa was at one time the editor-in-chief of the ANC's journal, Umkhabulo, and I quote from an article he wrote in 2013, when he said, "True cadres never aspire to have an uncontrollable lust to lead. The main motivation for true leaders is to serve the movement and the masses of our people at any level." Husband, a father, a brother, a son, the nation weeps with you. The state may offer ceremonies, it may offer honors and statements, but none of that replaces his presence, his love. You may find strength in memories of who he was at home, what you used to share with him, the small acts of kindness, and all that. To his comrades in the ANC, and to those who knew him in the unions and in youth activism, and in parliament and in government, in diplomacy, may you carry forward with humility what he showed by example. May you keep alive both his ideals and what he stood for. Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa is gone from amongst us, but he is not absent. His life's work endures in the laws, in the institutions, in the people whose stories he touched. His voice, sometimes contentious, sometimes inspiring, was always part of the conversation that helped to strengthen our democracy. He championed aspirations of our people, and he did so with great humility. We will remember the Nathi Mthethwa who joined the underground movement barely out of childhood, a testament of a courage that he possessed. We will remember Nathi Mthethwa who, in his position as a portfolio committee chair, advocated for the rights of communities and for the mining industry to be held to its commitment to uplift them. We will remember the Nathi Mthethwa who sat with the victims of crime in their homes, offering words of solace and empathy, who during his tenure as Minister of Police spoke out against gender-based violence and opened victim empowerment facilities at police stations. We have not forgotten the leadership that he showed during violent protests directed at foreign nationals, nor his strong statements that helped to quell social tensions at the time. He truly distinguished himself as a true Pan-Africanist and as an internationalist. We knew what his progressive stance would be as we now have to deal with contemporary challenges on our continent and globally. We would be troubled today as we hear news of the instability that is unfolding in Madagascar and the cruel, senseless killing of some 20 civilians in the Sudan last night. He would be troubled. We have not forgotten that he was an advocate for the rights of our nation's artists and performers, and that he championed legislative reform that would enable performers to benefit from their work and render them less vulnerable to exploitation. We have not forgotten his contribution to developing the creative economy. May we be reminded to live with humility and to lead with it even more as he did. To give credit where credit is due and show mercy when we must, which he did. To introspect more and to judge less, which Nathi Mthethwa did. Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa served his people extremely well. For this, we will forever remember him, for his contribution, and we do thank him deeply, much as he has departed too early for us. To the family, our thoughts and prayers are with you at this very difficult time. Let it not be only when it is too late that we try to take back our movement from those who exalt themselves about the people. It is this time when we must, in remembering Ambassador Mthethwa, that we should say, indeed, he was a servant of the people. He served our people well, and I am eternally grateful for what he did for us as an ambassador in France. He raised the flag of South Africa above many in Paris, and I thank my sister as well for having been by his side and for having helped and assisted him. Where he faltered without any deep French knowledge, She came in with her absolute fluent French and helped him. And I do think that she taught him some French towards the end of his life. So, Comrade Pilisiwe, we thank you and we honor you, and thank you very much. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you, Comrade President. Let's stand up in respect of this well-informed but touching eulogy, which entails the life of Comrade Nathi, but also inspires us to draw lessons from his struggle, not just as lessons, but to ensure that we emulate those lessons to progress our struggle forward.